General Stanley McChrystal, the former commander of U.S. and International Security Assistance Forces, Afghanistan. He was also the former commander of the nation's premier military counterterrorism force, Joint Special Operations Command. He has a new book out titled Risk, a User's Guide. General McChrystal, thank you so much for being with us. Risk, I know, is something that every strong leader will need to accept as part of the task. But we wanted to get your thoughts. Of course, we have to start with what happened in Afghanistan and the troop withdrawal. You have gone on record in saying that President Biden did something that was both difficult and courageous. You also said that you would have done things differently. How so?
Well, I am emotionally connected to Afghanistan in a way that probably not a lot of people, although veterans probably are. I would have left a force there. I believe it would have helped build the confidence of the government of Afghanistan and the Afghan people. But when I describe President Biden's decision, it was truly a gutsy one, because if we go back, the Doha Accord signed by President Trump's administration promised that the United States would pull all of its forces out by 1 May 2021. So for President Biden to not do that, he would have had to change or back away from the United States' agreement and potentially reopen direct hostilities with the Taliban. And that would have been tough. And there'd be a lot of people criticizing him for it. And there are a lot of people who criticize him for pulling out. So it was a no-win situation, the kind that tough leaders stand up to, and so I respect that.
Well, it was a deadly situation. We have to remember how many service members were actually killed there at the airport in Kabul. Risk, to say the least. But you were there and you actually helped train Afghan soldiers. I know that you said you have this emotional attachment there. There have been a lot of criticisms about why the Afghan military seemed to essentially hand power over to the Taliban. Well, we've seen reports that they were taking bribes, taking money so that they could receive weaponry. The Taliban could receive weaponry from the Afghan army. Do you have any thoughts on this or any perspective you can give us?
Well, war, more than just being weapons and numbers of soldiers, is about confidence. And I think over about a decade, the Afghan military, while it was simultaneously being built up and it was fighting in combat and losing a lot of people, its confidence was being undermined by several things. One was its own government was not as legitimate as it should have been, a lot of corruption and issues. Second, we kept signaling we're about to pull out. And so they were constantly worried, insecure in that fact. The Pakistanis were working in many cases to undermine that confidence. And the Taliban did an information campaign to convince the Afghan people, but particularly the military, that they were going to inevitably take over. And so when you start to have particularly a military that's distributed under local leaders, each element's making a calculation that says, do we want to be the last people to die? Are we going to fight this? In fact, if our side's going to lose, and they come to an accommodation. Then when the decision was made to start the American withdrawal, I think that was sort of like taking the air out of the balloon. The idea that the Afghans are cowards and won't fight is different from my experience. But I think, like almost any society, once they were convinced that their nation and government wouldn't hold, it fell pretty quickly.
Can we shift gears and talk a little bit about current tensions now between China and Taiwan? China pressuring for reunification. Taiwan is vowing to stand its ground. A lot of people, to connect these two parts of the world, a lot of people thought that we should have never been involved as closely with Afghanistan, that the U.S.'s involvement was just a little too intense. But now, what is your stance in terms of the U.S. involvement in mediating this China-Taiwanese tension?
Yeah, in every place in the world, you make a calculation based on U.S. strategic national interests. And one of those interests is building alliances and confidence. We have been allied with Taiwan essentially for 72 years, since the nationalist Chinese went there after their loss of mainland China in 1949. It has been part of our defense. They have been an ally of ours. Of course, we have acceded to the One China policy starting in 1971. And our strategy has been one of ambiguity, where we signal that we may defend Taiwan and we may not. Now, we've implied, I think, more that we would, and we've wanted to convince the Chinese, in fact, that they shouldn't move on Taiwan because we were likely to come to their aid. But we never actually aligned ourselves or tied ourselves down by treaty. Now we've got to make a decision, because the Chinese military capability is now good enough where they've raised the stakes. They've made it much more difficult for us to do a viable defense, which would have to include, I believe, strikes into mainland China. And they're trying to get Americans to do a calculation that says, Taiwan's not worth it. It's a long way from the United States, and we just don't want to do it. If they can get us to come to that conclusion, they achieve their aims. I think we should resist that. I think we should step back and take a deep breath and say, what are our interests around the world and our alliances in the region, the confidence of the Japanese, the South Koreans and whatnot, and make a decision about Taiwan based upon all those factors.
Yes, I think that we could talk for a whole hour on Chinese and U.S. relations in respect to this particular situation and what the ripple effects could be and the price, the sacrifice that could be made as a result of getting involved here or not getting involved. Really quick question, because we are completely out of time. Just tell us quickly about your book, Risk, A User's Guide.
Well, it essentially says that the greatest risk to us is us. The greatest opportunity for us to be resilient against risks like COVID-19 lies within us building that resilience. It's not in predicting or avoiding risks. They are going to emerge. It's making ourselves and our organization stronger.
Well, we certainly need bolder, braver people all around this world in every single sphere of influence. Thank you, General McChrystal, for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me on.